Visual Studio just got a huge upgrade. In the latest 17.4 release of Visual Studio 2022, we can now enable agent mode for GitHub Copilot. Agent mode will allow you to have conversations with Copilot and have the AI implement the change that you agree upon right into your code. That makes development with Copilot so powerful. Not only will the AI recommend changes for you, it will do some of the testing to validate that the changes actually worked as intended. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to GitHub Copilot Agent Mode. I will show you how to use it, and I will give you some best practices around how to work with it effectively. Before we get started though, I want to let you know that I also have paid training courses that focus on real-world development to keep your skills current in an ever-changing world. If you work for a company, let your boss know that we do offer discounts on team training packages as well. Just go to imtimcorey.com to get started. Okay, here we have Visual Studio. This is the latest version. Let's get started on a new project and I'll show you the version just so we're on the same page here. We're going to do a Blazor web app. We're going to keep this simple. We're going to call this our AI demo and AI demo app, just so we have something to work with. Okay, so we're going to use .NET 9, no authentication, yes to HTTPS. We're going to use auto, which is both server and WebAssembly. We're going to do per page interactivity, and yes, include the sample pages. So that's basically the defaults, but let's make sure we're on the same page. We hit create, and this will create for us 2 projects in our solution. So, so far, this is nothing. Like we just got a template up and running. That's great. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at GitHub Copilot. Now, you can sign up for GitHub Copilot for free. No, this is not a paid advertisement. This is just a pretty awesome tool that Microsoft includes. So up here on the right, we have GitHub Copilot. And now I personally have a paid version of GitHub Copilot. I pay for GitHub Copilot Pro Plus because I use it a lot in development. You don't have to pay for it. You can use the free version. The free version is limited in how many requests you can make to the AI. So there are some limitations because running an AI is expensive. And so there are some limitations there. But I want to show you this because whether you are doing this personally and want to try this out, or whether you work for a company and say, hey, I want to go to the paid version of this, whichever, this is a pretty cool feature to have. So on GitHub Copilot, we're going to open the chat window. Now, we've had the chat window for a while. There is a new change down here. We're using GPT 4.1 instead of 4.0. Again, I have more options here than you will have because of the fact that I do pay for GitHub Copilot. So just note that. But there is a new version of GPT that's the 4.1. So personally, in my development, I have been using the Claude 3.7 version, but we're going to use GPT 4.1 today. Different LLMs have different flavors, and 4.1 has been trained on a whole bunch of open source projects to give better coding answers. So right now, I don't have agent mode enabled, and I don't have any option to enable agent mode in this window. This is the normal GitHub Copilot chat, which you can do things like summarize my code, write unit tests, and so on. So this kind of gives you a summary of what's going on. You can say, hey, on the active document, or I want to look at files or solution or methods. We can say the entire solution for our project and solution. But this is just GitHub Copilot chat. We're going to change this over to be agent mode instead of just interactive mode. So to do that, we go to Tools. By the way, I failed to tell you about Microsoft Visual Studio. We are on version 17.14.0. I might have said 0.4. It's 0.14. So 17.14.0 is the latest version of Visual Studio Community Edition, or Visual Studio whichever edition 2022. If you have professional or enterprise, it's the same thing. So in case it's confusing, yes, I know Visual Studio is confusing here with this. The Microsoft Visual Studio Community or Enterprise or Professional version is the year 2022, but that's not really accurate because that's when it came out initially, but it has been updated almost monthly, I believe, ever since. So even though it's at this point 3 years old in the naming, it's still the latest version of Visual Studio. And that's why we have this version number here, which then lends some confusion as 2022 versus the version number. But just note that 17.14.0 is the latest version if you don't have that update to that. Now, Community Edition is free in a lot of cases. That's why I use it. I want to show you the free version. You don't have to use a paid version. Like I said, I do have Copilot Pro Plus. I wish I could have the free version as well, but with my account, I use it a lot, and therefore I use the paid version. Okay, so under Tools, we're going to go to Options, and we're going to collapse Environment and come down here to GitHub. Inside here is Copilot, and the very top mode is Enable Agent Mode in the chat pane. We're going to check that box. Now, this is a preview feature still. This is still, even though it's in the retail version, they're still working out all the kinks and making sure that they, continually improve this feature. But it's good enough for a lot of uses right now, including in production applications. You just need to, work through a couple of quirks that might pop up because they're still working on all the implementations and how it all work. But notice down here, we now have this drop down that says Ask. You control what code to apply, review, and accept. Or Agent, Copilot applies code, build fixes, bug fixes, and more. That may sound scary because this implies that we're not asking, we're telling you, right? That's not really what happens, and you'll see that where it makes some changes, but it allows you to roll back those changes, mostly, and we'll talk about that as well. So with this, we're now in agent mode. So in agent mode, let's close that properties out. I don't need that open. I'm going to work on this project. Now, let's just boot it up real quick. So we have the kind of baseline, what this thing looks like. We're going to do a few tweaks to this, nothing of great substance, but I just want to show off how you can use agent mode. So let's go shrink it down there. There we go. So this is the default, Blazor project. We have our counter, which we can click and it, interacts. We go to weather and it shows us the weather data. Great. That's a basic hello world type application from Blazor. But let's start making some tweaks. But I'm not going to do the tweaks myself. I'm going to let agent mode do them so you can see how they work. The first tweak I want to make is notice this bar up here that says about. I don't love that. I don't want that. So let's get rid of that bar. Now, you might not even know where that bar resides. So let's kind of throw GitHub Copilot a curveball where we're going to say, I just don't like that top bar. I don't like the top bar on my site where it says about. Can you please remove the entire bar? Now, always be polite to your AIs. When I hit enter, it's going to do this work. Now, just so you know, the work that an AI does will be different for every person. It's not always going to be identical. It may make some different tweaks to mine that it does to yours. It may give different solutions for mine versus yours. So just note that it may be a little different, right? So let's, it's already got a diff here. Notice it just did a build. So why it do a build? Because it wanted to make sure that things were going to be actually buildable. So let's close this out and look at what it did. So let's come over here to our window, 8 references. Notice it says here, here's the places it looked. Okay, so it looked in all these places. And now it says to remove the top bar containing the about link, I will delete the corresponding div from the main layout.razor. We didn't know where that was, right? I mean, we did, but pretend we didn't. It found it. So the rest of the layout will remain unchanged. Okay, so this is the file it changed. Notice -4 + 0. That's a diff type view. So we can look at that and see here's the inline changes. But notice that it removed that top bar from the file. That's all it did. Okay. And it said the top bar containing the about link has been removed from your layout. The change was applied successfully and your project still builds without errors. Okay. So that's the bit of testing that it's done. Now, we still have this down here, keep or undo. Before you do that, test it. So run the application. It's in line. It's actually here. Notice the top bar is now gone. So yes, it built, but maybe it wasn't going to be quite correct. So make sure you test it by actually running it, seeing it, also reviewing the code. This is really important. Don't ever just take what an AI says as correct, because AIs are not actually thinking machines in the way we think. Okay, they're taking examples that they have found. They're kind of mashing them all together, figuring out what might work, and then taking a very educated guess, which is why they can hallucinate the wrong guess. But they're taking a guess. And so you don't want to just say, hey, apply all changes all the time. We've been using this internally at I Am Tim Corey, building new sites and working on existing sites. And one of the things we found was that we were working on a page where we actually had multiple commented out sections. And those commented out sections were basically different page contents that could be there. And so we said, hey, I want to make this change, which would apply to not only the uncommented section, but the various commented out sections. And it knew that, and it made those changes. And they all looked right until about the 8th one, in which case they started putting code in really bad places, and it was just a mess. So it created a mess at the end. At the beginning, it all worked, and it all compiled, and it looked right for the uncommented out section. But the ones that were commented out, when we uncommented those, it just broke everything. So be careful to do an actual code review of the changes it's going to make. Now, this one's pretty simple. We're making one change. Notice it says this is the file that was changed. Here's the 2 tasks that were done. But the file, we can click on it and go right to it and then see the diff view, like you would Git, and say, okay, they removed those 4 lines. I think that's good. Therefore, we're going to hit keep. Okay, so we've now hit keep. We can get rid of our diff view. And now our main layout doesn't have that top navigation, that top bar. So that's one thing. But let's run this again and just look at the site, because I don't like the Blazor purple, right? I know that's kind of sacrilege. If you're a C# developer, you have to like the Blazor purple, right? No, I don't. I don't like purple. So let's change the site. But I'm not a designer. I'm not good at making good designs. So how do we make this look better? Well, we're going to use a site called colorhunt.co. And colorhunt.co just gives you some really cool color palettes. And you can choose whichever color palette you want and say, hey, I kind of like that. Or, like this is a kind of fun color palette. Maybe not for Blazor, but, that might work. Or we could look at, I don't know. Again, I'm not a designer. But let's go to the top here. This kind of struck me as interesting. So I click on this color palette. And here's the 4 colors, right? Now, again, I'm going to throw GitHub Copilot for a bit of a loop. I'm going to not give it all the information. I'm doing this intentionally. I would encourage you, when you are giving commands to AIs, to be as clear as possible. It's like requirements for a project. The clearer you are, the better results you get. But I'm just showing you how GitHub Copilot can make decisions. So I'm going to copy these 4 hex codes. Okay, I'm just going to copy those. And then I'm going to close out the app. This is one of the updates I'm going to be pushing for, is you can make a change in GitHub Copilot chat with the site running, but at the end of the process, it wants to build the application to make sure it still builds, but that would stop the application. So you really aren't going to be able to do hot reload changes the way I'd like to. That may be coming in the future. We'll see. Now, we can delete this thread and start over. We don't have to. You can keep going. And I would encourage you, if you're making incremental changes, don't delete the thread, just keep going. It gives better context. But let's say, again, right now it's an active document. That's fine. We could give it more specific if you wanted to, but I'm going to be pretty generic and say I want to change the color theme to use these colors, and then paste in just the 4 hex codes. I didn't tell it what those colors were. I didn't tell it which one was primary. I didn't tell it which one is the right one for text. I just gave it 4 colors. I hit enter. It's going to figure out what we should do. Okay. So it's looking at the files. It has named them. So light background, a primary, a secondary or dark, an accent or highlight color. And then it's located the CSS files that changed. Notice it made some changes. It's still making changes. Notice it's continuing to write as we talk. It found out that there's places like app.css, then there's the main layout.razor.css, then there is the nav menu.razor.css that need to be changed. So it's going to change all these different locations. Notice right here, we're right now on main layout, and it's halfway through. It's still working its way down this file. There it goes. It's down to the bottom now. And it's not done yet because we still have one more. Notice the red X is here saying, hey, we're still going. AIs can take a while. So don't get discouraged when it's taking 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes to run. Now, it may feel slow, and in some ways it is because you're sitting there waiting for something, but it has made a lot of changes, right? So it's done now, and it did a build, and it says, hey, the theme has been updated across your app. They call it a Blazor WebAssembly app, which is actually a Blazor web app. It's a little off. That's okay. But notice it removed 11 lines, add 18, removed 4 lines, add 11, removed 10 lines, add 11. So it's made 40 some changes in the addition and 25 or so in the subtraction. And here's what it's done. It changed from color white to be this color. It changed from this 1 pixel solid with this color background or border to this one. It added a color to the navbar brand. Again, it changed this color. And again, I encourage you, review every single line. Don't let it just go. For example, these right here, notice that they are not fully, they're not fully solid. They're not fully, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not translucent. How about that? The opposite of that. But they're partially translucent, whereas these are not. That might be something that you want to change. Maybe you do want to have an RGBA, and so you could say, hey, you know what? For that background color, I want you to convert that to an RGBA. You could undo this specific change. It's right here. So there's a bunch of changes that made, but once you reviewed all of them, I'm not going to bore you with all the review, but also notice the SVG it made a change to inline. That's pretty cool. Inline SVG change. Pretty awesome. But let's run this. There's our new site. Does it look different? Oh, for sure. It looks totally different because it used a new color theme and we don't have that purple anymore. It does not feel like it's just a generic template from Microsoft. Now it still has the same layout with the nav bar on the side and the header up here, but we could change that too. And we're not going to go through and change everything, but I want to show off that yes, you can make some pretty dramatic changes using agent mode and just tell it what to do. So I had a site recently that I needed to rebuild. It was not something I wanted to put much time into, but it had gone down and we didn't have a source code for it. And it was basically a domain just sitting there empty. And I wanted to kind of put something in place. Now, I didn't want to bother my designer and go through the process of having my web developer take the design and implement it and all the rest. I just needed something in place to say, hey, here's, something on this domain for now. And that domain is how to learn C#. I'm going to put something there eventually that's more in depth, but I just built out this site with free resources and our premium resources and what people have to say about it, including you can go to the next one, and it automatically progresses, and a learning path. And when you're ready, you can go right to the site. So this How to Learn C#, that's all agent built. I tweaked manually 2 small things. I just didn't want to have to bother with making those small changes with the AI. Otherwise, I just said, hey, build this. And hey, I don't like this. Let's use a different theme. Hey, let's move. It had a white bar for this background. And hey, no, I want to put that right on the image. And all these different things. It built all of it for me. I just put the images on the site and said, hey, use those images. I said, hey, use these links. And I just implemented and put everything in place. So some pretty cool stuff you can do with agent mode. Now, this one was agent mode in VS Code. So VS Code has agent mode. It's had it for a bit, and it's a pretty awesome experience. Now we have agent mode for Visual Studio. We can start doing some of the similar things. So I'm going to keep my changes. And now all of that has been applied. The diff window you can close. Like, you don't need to keep diff windows open. But now we have our application. It looks right, at least right for what we want it to be. Noticing the orange outline or goldenrod outline. It's things that, it's a good start. I would continue to make changes to this, but it knows a lot about our application because it's in agent mode. And what is agent mode versus just the ask mode? Well, agent mode actually can look at your files and can say, okay, I'm going to take a peek into these files, and it found out, oh, here are the 3 CSS files. Maybe you didn't know there were 3 CSS files in your Blazor project by default. So there's app.css right here. You think, well, that's all the CSS files I see. Yes, but main layout, which normally looks like this, to expand it, we have a main layout.razor.css, which is CSS specific to the main layout. So if you'd made a change in app.css, it would not have changed the main layouts page if there was an override in here. So agent mode knows enough to look through your project and find all these different things and make the changes necessary. So that's a huge benefit of agent mode. So agents can utilize your tooling and utilize the system to actually say, hey, what are your files? And hey, let's build this to make sure. You can even do things like it might prompt you to add a NuGet package through the command line. So when you say, hey, I wanted to do this, and this might be too much to do for a demo, but please add the Dapper NuGet package to my main project. And let's just see if it does. Okay, so what it's saying right now is, hey, I'm waiting for permission to run. So it says, I want to run .NET add aidemo/aidemo/aidemo.cs package Dapper. I want to add that package to your project. Do you want to allow it? Just note, there is a drop down here that says allow in this solution or always allow. Don't do that. Make it ask you because you want to review. I'm going to show you why. Allow this time. Okay, so it's going to go to PowerShell. It's going to add the project. It's going to succeed and it says, hey, we're done. Cool. Where is the keep or undo? Notice the keep and undo are blanked out. Do you know why? Because that change has already been applied, there is no undo. If you go to Solution Explorer, we go to the AI demo, we'll notice in here that we can unpin this. We have the Dapper added as a package. So it has been added and there is not an undo option. The reason for that is because it ran something on PowerShell. So it ran this PowerShell command. That PowerShell command doesn't really have a back out, at least not yet, in agent mode. So just note that your project has been changed. And if you say, hey, you know what? Maybe you asked for a change that required NuGet packages, but also made changes to files. You would have a keep or undo. And you could undo and say, no, you know what? Never mind, I'm going to undo all of that. and it would undo all of the changes it made to your project except for the things it did on the command line, like adding a package reference. This is why you still want to use source control. Using source control with AI is even more important because it can make changes you're not even aware of. You might be now taking NuGet package dependencies that you don't really need. And so now you have these packages and everyone's afraid to remove them because they're not sure why they're there, but they think maybe it's important to be there, and you're making changes to your project for no reason. So always use source control. Always use source control. And this comes down to, I think, the last kind of best practice I want to talk about is this is all exciting stuff. This is really exciting stuff and really powerful. And I would encourage you to learn how to use it. In fact, I will have content around AI and agent mode especially, and others coming out soon, especially. I'll do a course as well. But just because AI can do all this cool stuff does not mean that you don't have to know how that cool stuff is done. In fact, it's even more important that you understand how to do it yourself first. Because otherwise, it's going to look right, it's going to compile, and you're like, cool, let's just go, go, go. And at some point, you have a broken system that you're not sure why it's broken or how it's broken, and potentially even has major security issues, but you don't know that because you don't understand the code that you implemented. So I would encourage you to, if you're just starting off in C#, don't use agent mode yet. Learn how to code it yourself. And then you can start using this to help you be even faster once you're understanding how to do it yourself. If you just let a tool do it for you, at some point, if a tool doesn't work, or if a tool has a problem, or the tool runs out of credits, all of a sudden you're up a creek and can't do anything. And it turns out that you're kind of exposed for being a fraud because it wasn't you that was doing it. It was just you blindly accepting AI. So don't be that person. Learn how to code first before you then apply these tools like AI and Copilot and all the rest to really enhance your ability to move even faster. This is why AI is not going to replace developers. It's awesome. It can do some amazing things, but you still have to have a good guiding hand that knows what it's doing. Even in the run up for practicing for this and going over what I could ask for to do that would be clean and clear and understandable, AI messed up some things. It worked. It wasn't the right way of doing things. And so it was messy and it added NuGet packages and it took them away and it took away the references to them, but they're still there. And it was trying to do things that technically would work, but they're not the right way of doing things. It would be a memory issue or it'd be a security issue. There's a lot of stuff you have to keep an eye on and know it's not just the AI will get better eventually. No, this is about making sure that you understand what's going on in your project and what's being changed. That's why it's always important to review these changes, understand what those changes were, and make sure that's the right change for your solution. You will find about 5% are wrong. And 5% doesn't sound like much, but I tell you what, it's a major issue. It's like, having poop in a brownie. Only 5% of the brownie is poop. Doesn't matter. Doesn't taste good. Don't want to eat it. Okay. So same thing with your applications. You will make sure that it's clean, it has good ingredients, and that you have an application that is rock solid, secure, and handles things on the edge cases, not just the happy path. Okay. So that's just the tip of the iceberg of agent mode. Just note that I believe it's 2,000 requests of the AI before you're done in free mode. You have to look on GitHub Copilot site for that and how that works. You can manage, I can manage my subscription. You can look at consumption, what that is. Just note that one request isn't necessarily one credit. It may be multiple. So be mindful that even people who are paying have to limit their request to a certain amount because the fact that running these agents isn't cheap. it's very expensive. It's running on somebody else's server. Therefore, there's a lot of costs involved, and it's at this point probably a loss leader. They're probably losing money on what they're doing as they roll these things out and try to get them into people's hands. Eventually, things will go up in cost, but the value is definitely there. I would encourage you to learn how to use it, because when you get into if you're at a job right now and you're a mid-level to senior developer, tell your boss, hey, we need to learn how to use this because we can move a whole lot faster and get a whole lot more done. Be on the winning side, right? Be on the winning side of using AI to help move you forward safely and securely, but help move you forward faster so that you can be an even more effective developer, which has always been the thing, right? Like Visual Studio itself. The fact that we have Visual Studio and it has these colors and it has the tabs and the layouts and all these things are there to help make us faster. Because I started in Notepad. I started with nothing. My editor was just a screen that had no interactivity as far as like, this is going to compile or not compile. Didn't have that. You had to figure it out. So all these things have always made us faster as developers. This is just the next big step in making us faster as developers. Learn how to use it, learn how to take advantage of it, and learn how to not fall in some of those pitfalls that I pointed out. All right. So thanks for watching. I appreciate your interactivity in this video. Share it, like it, comment it, subscribe, all those good things. Let me know down in the comments if you have thoughts on this, positive or negative, and more. I will be at Build. I'll be talking to the people who built this and talking to the people who are continuing to add new features. So if you have thoughts on what you would like to see moving forward or questions for them, leave them down in the comments. I'll see what I can do to get some of those answered. All right. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.